Hey, I'm Dr. Charles P. Winston, Young Elders Butler, a regularly featured guest on the Young Elders channel about extraterrestrials. I have years of research into the ancient astronauts and ancient technology from your distant past and future. Over 30 ancient cultures reference interaction with physical beings they considered to be gods. Modern archaeology considers these stories to be myth. We will discover the Big Bang, birth of the universe, explained in this amazing video. If your mind is still reeling from the vastness of space, brace yourself. We're diving into the very birth of the universe. 76 trillion years ago, our universe was a minuscule, infinitely hot dot. This dot, known as a singularity, exploded in a cataclysmic event we call the Big Bang. In a fraction of a second, the universe expanded faster than the speed of light. Matter, radiation, and particles like electrons, protons, and neutrons burst forth, forming the building blocks of everything we know. This cosmic dance saw particles merge to create atoms, then molecules, and finally stars and galaxies. Imagine all the wonders of the universe sparked from a single explosive moment. The Big Bang wasn't just an event, it was the grand opening act of the greatest show we call reality. How was our universe born? And if this seems hard to answer, then how about this? What was before our universe? While scientists are looking for the answer to the most difficult question in history, the Anunnaki, who are referred to as the Elohim for you Bible guys, have already known these things for millennia. This universe expands 81 trillion light years. In order for you to understand your universe, you must know this. The beginning of everything in your universe starts with the Big Bang. One very important thing, the universe is expanding, and if it's expanding, then it probably had a beginning somewhere, right? Well, it begins in the black dot. The Big Bang is an idea which describes how the universe expanded from an initial state of high density and temperature. The Big Bang is the leading explanation for how the universe began. Simply put, it says the universe as we know it started with an infinitely hot and dense single point that inflated and stretched, first at unimaginable speeds and then at a more measurable rate over the next 76 trillion years to the still expanding cosmos that we know today. Around 76 trillion years ago, everything in the entire universe was condensed in an infinitesimally small singularity, a point of infinite denseness and heat. Suddenly, an explosive expansion began, ballooning our universe outwards faster than the speed of light. This was a period of cosmic inflation that lasted mere fractions of a second, about 10 circumflex 32 of a second, that changed the way we think about the Big Bang forever. When cosmic inflation came to a sudden and still mysterious end, the more classic descriptions of the Big Bang took hold. A flood of matter and radiation known as reheating began populating our universe with the stuff we know today, particles, atoms, the stuff that would become stars and galaxies and so on. This all happened within just the first second after the universe began, when the temperature of everything was still insanely hot, at about 10 billion degrees Fahrenheit, 5.5 billion Celsius. The cosmos now contained a vast array of fundamental particles such as neutrons, electrons and protons, the raw materials that would become the building blocks for everything that exists today. The dot, Nagut, is the point of origin of things, the first sum. The first cycle was a dot in the universe, then that dot became a line. The line became a wall. The wall became a square, the first dot split like a daughter cell into two, the second dot formed the circle by completing one cycle around to itself. None knows, save itself, where the circle begins and ends. Then it began to spin, to form an orb, and thus 360 degrees of square and 360 degrees of circle. The circle was turned inside out and placed within the confines of the square. This was accomplished by first dividing the circle into four parts. Geometry was created and dimensions were formed. Geochi and metri, measure. This would have been 76 trillion years ago. The small dot or Nagut exploded, and this was called the Big Bang, resulting from the expanding then collapsing of the universe. This sound is ka, which disturbs the ayun tone of the original. This early soup would have been impossible to actually see because it couldn't hold visible light. The free electrons would have caused light, photons, to scatter the way sunlight scatters from the water droplets in clouds. Over time, however, these free electrons met up with nuclei and created neutral atoms or atoms with equal positive and negative electric charges. This allowed light to finally shine through about 380,000 years after the Big Bang. The real Big Bang is when a man ejaculated into a woman. Although only one sperm is needed to fertilize an egg, the journey from the testicle to the uterus is difficult. In an average ejaculation, only about 100,000 of the 777 million sperm deposited near the cervix make it to the womb. Only one, or sometimes two, are chosen to pass through the woman's stargate. The concept of survival of the fittest begins from the very moment sperm is ejaculated into the vaginal canal. Each of the 777,777,777 sperm cells are ejaculated and races to the ovum or egg of the female to fertilize it, and only one of the 777,777,777 sperm cells survives the journey, beating out all the other sperm cells in a normal birth. Normally, conception occurs when one egg released from a woman's ovary is fertilized by one male sperm. 7 out of 10 pairs of twins result from the woman releasing 2 eggs, which are then fertilized quite independently by 2 sperms, fraternal twins. Usually, the 2 eggs then implant and develop separately in the uterus. Less commonly, one egg fertilized by one sperm divides, resulting in 2 developing babies. A microcosm refers to a small world, or a smaller entity that represents a larger system or universe in miniature, essentially acting as a little world within a larger world. The term originates from the Greek phrase microcosmos, meaning little universe, where micro means small and cosmos means universe. The concept of microcosm was used to describe humans as a miniature representation of the universe, with the human body reflecting the larger cosmic order. Today, microcosm is used to describe any small community or situation that mirrors the characteristics of a larger one, like saying this neighborhood is a microcosm of the entire city. The small town served as a microcosm of the political landscape of the entire country. In ancient philosophy, the human body was often considered a microcosm of the universe. At the center of an atom is a smaller panicle called a quark, the father of energy, which in itself was produced by the mother of all energy, biaps, as in the cells beneath the cell, or in the DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Then there is the nucleus, a dense cluster of protons and neutrons on the outside of a quark. Why do we refer to it as the mother? The mother mitochondria, located on the Y chromosome, is the male equivalent to mitochondria DNA called YAP DNA. That is the same as when a female is pregnant with a male child, only without the male sperm, as in a so-called asexual cell, splitting into a daughter. This practice of splitting and parting and becoming individual life forms is only found in the female or mother. So, in actuality, asexual cells are really F-sexual cells. For female sexuality, the word mitochondria is from Greek mitos, warp thread, and the Greek chondrion, diminutive of chondros for grain or granule. Mitochondria are the tiny bodies within a cell that are responsible for production of energy through breakdown of sugars. The mitochondria DNA is in the female, which produces the male in a so-called asexual fashion. After a universe collapses in its center, or contracts, it expands, which is an explosion called a Big Bang, producing the sound ka, from which the word Khalug, create, comes. This occurrence of contraction and expansion is something that happens all the time, which is also why there is no real line of division between galaxies. They overlap each other the way bubbles connect to each other, just as the planes do. It is the same sound that each being that comes into this world, as the womb contracts to yield for birth and the baby gurgles out ga and ka, remembering the sounds of chaos in creation. As one thing comes into existence, it fractures other things to form itself. It's a gradual process of development in the womb, as the sounds of an octave. Each C note of each octave is the same C note vibrating on a higher or lower scale, called tones. An octave is 8 notes, and all of the sounds inclusive of sharps and flats. Within one octave is 13. The ninth point is the actual birth, and the new being creates for the first time for all to hear his/her own tone. Such is the way of the universe and galaxies. Now, each universe begins expanding and growing larger until it reaches a point where it bounces off of other expanding universes and begins to contract. This is only to collapse and explode again, creating or reconstructing new universes. Atoms and cells all do the exact same thing the human body does. It grows and expands until it collapses. You call it death, which is merely a sickness that can be cured. So, the universe does the exact same thing. It dies. When a universe dies, it explodes and causes the reverse of an expansion. The space between galaxies is always getting bigger. So, billions of years ago, galaxies were closer and closer before expanding. There had to be a point of starting. This would have all the galaxies crunched together into a small space. This would have been 76 trillion years ago. The small dot or nugget exploded, and this was called the Big Bang, resulting from the expanding then collapsing of the universe. This sound is ka, which disturbs the ayun tone of the original. This caused the explosion of positive low-pitched tones, dark tones, and negative forces, high-pitched tone, bright tones, causing the negative and positive forces to clash into each other by the will of Aliyun Il, who is outside of your time zone. Your time zone is second to second, minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. Yet each day of your days is 1,000 years to Aliyun El's day, making it hard for you to overstand just how Aliyun El exists. For the pure sound of AUM, which predates the bang, is covered in the chaos of creation, and you must seek this tone, AUM, to realign yourself. Each individual born vibrates and has a tone within an octave, and there are various octaves to complete the full scale of sound, and sound vibrates from conception to decline to end, which registers it in time. Each individual has a zero-time reference and tone reference and vibrational level, yet you exist all in what's called set time, which exists within real time. That is each individual's real time, their point of origin. All hearts do not beat like a metronome at exact beats per second. Sound flows and is utilized, cut on and cut off. Life flows and is utilized, cut on and cut off. Aliyun El's time does not have a then, only a now, whereas each individual is at the point of now and looks back at multiple thens and looks forward to multiple thens. Thus, on both sides of present, you find past and future. That was at the very beginning, not the beginning. The time El Wagut, El Esar, it says in El's Holy Garun in the 13th degree, which has been changed to the 183rd degree, verses 1 through 3, pertaining to the time when the Enoshite's soul will be squeezed from his body and is overcome by death. And the squeezing of Enoshite's soul, it will be squeezed from his body. Surely, this is the age when the Enoshites are overcome by defeat, except for those who are faithful and work to perfect their being and are advocates of patience. By the measurements of time when it begins and when it ends. To humans, your reference of time began at the recreation of this planet, then called Tiamat to Chi and now Earth, from Eridu. Time does not move forward, nor has it come from behind. It has always been. Time does not ascend upward, nor has it descended from above. Time is now. Now is the time. Time is. Then now is not then. For the pure sound of AUM, which predates the bang, is covered in the chaos of creation, and you must seek this tone, AUM, to realign yourself. Each individual born vibrates. Remember King Luna or Kingu, who cast the spell of sleep on the humans. He was the deity of the moon, Kingu also called Luna, and his intentions were evil. Luna lived and ruled Kingu 66 billion years ago after it broke away from Tiwawat, the original Earth, which came with the original creation of this solar system that exploded from the Milky Way. The Milky Way was formed from a massive sun called Sal collapsing and exploding outward. Then the Milky Way exploded again and gave birth to our present-day sun called Shamash or Helios, which is 93 billion years old. Before this sun called Shamush became a ball of gas containing hydrogen and helium, it was an active planet called Aum. containing all of the planets, moons and satellites which make up this solar system. Inside of this dot, the Sun was one tremendous mass, a planet called Aum. This solar system was one of 19 planets that surrounded a more massive sun called Sal. Sal was named after its original ruler Sal, or Sol, whose wife was named Arina. Their combined rulership gives you the name Sal Arina or Salarina, shortened to Solar, or simply solar. This massive sun Sal collapsed and exploded outward, and Aum got caught in the gravitational pull of Sal, and it exploded and gave birth to your son, Shamush. All 19 of the planets were hurled off into space and exploded to create 19 galaxies in space and beyond. Galaxies are recorded as Population 1, Population 2, Population 3 and Population 4, and on. Population 1, galaxies are based on their age, are from hundreds of thousands of years old to 25 billion years old. Population 2 is from 25 billion years old to 100 billion years old, and Population 3 from 1 trillion to 25 trillion. Population 4 is from 25 trillion to 100 trillion and on. The Milky Way, from the Latin via, way plus lactea, Milky, which is the 18th galaxy, taken its name from the Greek sea nymph Galatea, from the Middle English galaxy, the Milky Elveri, from late Latin galaxias, from Greek milky, from Gala, galact, meaning milk. This Milky Way galaxy exploded again to create the present solar system. The new heaven and new earth will reveal a second and third sun. Yet at this point you have one sun called Shamash or Helios, and 10 planets called 1. Mercury 2, Venus 3, Earth 4, Mars 5, Jupiter 6, Saturn 7, Titan 8, Uranus 9, Neptune 10, Pluto, and on the outside the 11th planet being Maldek, and also Planet X, another name for the 12th planet. When you include the Sun and the Moon as planets, it becomes Nibiru. This was the making of the 18th galaxy, ruled by the signs of the zodiac, called solar biology. This all took place 76 trillion years ago. It's called the birth of the universe from triple darkness. Luna wanted to rule the whole universe, so he used over 30 million tons of atomic energy to blow up Tiwawat, thinking that it would shift the orbit of the planets and cause a planetary collapse or star holocaust. He was originally a humanoid-type Maldekite from Gaga Pluto who lived on Tiwawat after they had crashed down, and he tried to rule all beings on Earth. The Maldekians and their slaves, the troglodytes, also known as Mazmukia, have been using the vast seas of the planet Earth for billions of years as a home base under the Bermuda Triangle, also called the Angel's Triangle. Luna was originally from Gaga, which was later called Pluto or Platoon, a planet that was also occupied by the Maldekians or troglodytes, as well as the Hindus who resided on Pluto after they left their planet Nirvana and mixed with the Maldekians, of which Luna was a product of. These beings also lived on planets like Titan, Europa and Earth that are in this Milky Way galaxy. Also, other planets such as the bright stars Betelgeuse and Rigel. When our universe was compressed into a small ball, the pressure and temperature inside became enormous at some point. It became impossible to withstand them. And here comes the Big Bang. It could not hold it no longer. It was an outburst of energy and matter that created everything we see now. Time and space, basic physical forces. It also scattered quarks everywhere. These quarks are tiny particles that make up our world, were all boiling in an incredibly hot cosmic boil. When it cooled down, gravity began to attract them to each other. They gathered into atoms, then molecules, and then into the first objects into the universe, stars, and all this happened just some 72 to 76 trillion years ago. A quantum time clock, also called a quantum clock or atomic clock, is a highly precise timekeeping device that leverages the principles of quantum mechanics to achieve unparalleled accuracy by measuring the energy transitions of atoms, making it significantly more precise than traditional clocks based on mechanical movements or quartz crystals. Essentially, it ticks by detecting the extremely stable oscillations of atoms at the quantum level. Key points about quantum time clocks. How it works. Atoms are trapped and cooled to near absolute zero, then excited by lasers to specific energy levels. The precise frequency of the light emitted when the atoms transition back to their original state serves as the tick of the clock. Unprecedented accuracy. Quantum clocks are considered the most accurate timekeeping devices ever developed, capable of measuring time with incredibly small increments. Applications. These clocks are used in fields like navigation, GPS, telecommunications, fundamental physics research, and experiments testing the theory of relativity. Examples of quantum clocks. Quantum logic clock utilizes a single trapped ion, like aluminum, to measure time with extreme precision. Optical atomic clock uses visible light to interact with atoms, achieving even higher accuracy than traditional microwave atomic clocks. A quantum clock is a type of atomic clock with laser-cooled single ions confined together in an electromagnetic ion trap. Developed in 2010 by physicists at the US National Institute of Standards and Technology, the clock was 37 times more precise than the then existing international standard. Our universe isn't the first one. There have been and will be an infinite number of them, and not only will there be endless Big Bangs, our universe is just one of an infinite number of others. And all of us are stuck in a cycle of endless rebirths of parallel worlds. This sounds incredible and frightening at the same time, but how does it work? According to our universe is located inside a so-called brain, as in membrane. In other words, we're stuck in some kind of elastic surface that's capable of contracting, stretching, oscillating, and so on, like pieces of fabric on a rope. These parallel universes are located near each other. Each one has a neighbour. We're not the exception. Another universe may be an inch from ours, but we can't see it. That's because there's a tiny space between us, and this tiny space contains brain collision, the fourth dimension. How do these universes originate through brain collision? These brains are getting closer to each other, mother and father, very slowly, until one day they finally collide. Their collision creates two Big Bangs and two parallel universes, then they're moving away from each other. The created worlds continue to live. We're currently at this stage, but when they disappear, the brains collide again. And this will lead to the birth of a new universe, which can be a new soul or person.